It's the Political Free Agents podcast, and we're back for our Wednesday episode. What's going on, Mike?
What's good, brother?
Man, just on this grind. You on your way
Same
back
here.
from the grind. I literally just got off, so.
That's how we do it. Working
man.
every day, trying to make $1 out of 99 cents, so they say.
This is my evening break right now because I'm about to hit it once I get off of here. Got to get back on it, man.
I hear you. I'm not even done with work. I'm just driving to the second half of my day.
Absolutely. And, to the audience listening, I have two fans going. Our AC went out last week, supposed to get fixed tomorrow. So you'll hear a bunch of wind on my end. Mike's driving. Is what it is. Focus on the content, and we'll be good. Hey, Mike, you catch any of this football, man?
I caught I caught the results of the Chiefs game, the Chiefs opener. Looks like Mahomes picked up right where he left off.
That's the game you want to talk about? The game where the Texans got blasted? That's the game you want to talk about?
Sorry about that, bro. We don't have to go. We don't have to go with football if you want. I know you're dying to talk about basketball because the Clippers guys. Yeah, go James. Yeah. Well, it's kind of a disappointment that old Go James isn't gonna be matched up against Kawhi Leonard in the Western Conference Finals. But man, they blew it. I mean they lost 3 games in a row. In a row. They were up double digits in pretty much all those games too. They did it themselves.
Man, I honestly I didn't see it coming, man. They got some dogs on that squad, man. That I just figured, it's a given. It's LA versus LA. Nope.
I know a lot of people did. I mean, a lot of people. I caught that Celtics Heat game too. That was a nasty block at the end of the game.
Jimmy Buckets, man. That dude, Jimmy Butler, been balling. I like him though. He has an attitude about him because he came from like a small school. He didn't get heavily recruited, so he got that edge. And I think he might be from Chicago or something like that. But anyway, he got that edge to him, man. And he's just like, man, I'm just gonna go out and outwork everybody. And so I just love that mentality, man. He can be an a-hole sometimes, but I love the mentality, man. The dude is a definite star. But it'll be interesting to see them play him.
Well, I was gonna say, I tell you what, if I think a lot of people had the matchup between LeBron James and Kawhi Leonard, and that was the matchup that was either gonna make or break LeBron. But now that he's not going to match up with him, I mean, if he loses now, if he doesn't win the championship now, I think it's actually worse. Because the expectation now, I think, is it's kind of a foregone conclusion at this point, right? Because most people thought that Kawhi and the Clippers were the only real obstacle in their way. So if they don't win now, definitely don't want to hear any more GOAT talk. Honestly, I don't even care if he wins. I don't even care if he wins. I still don't want to hear any GOAT talk. It's like blasphemy for me to hear somebody talk about LeBron James like he's the greatest of all time. Not that he's not a great player, right? Like all-time great player, but it's like one of the most annoying things to have to listen to, right? But
hey,
it is what it is.
Speaking about that, John Starks just brought it up. Completely random, article I saw where, you know how they like to do, man. They like to ask all the old heads, who's better, LeBron or Jordan? And I mean, if you ask somebody that got torched by Jordan repeatedly, Like, what do you think they're gonna say, right? But he actually gave a very balanced answer, and he was basically like, you really can't compare them. They're not even the same guy, right? Like, you can't compare a Jordan who is just he's gonna give it to you. He's just a killer, and somebody that's more of like a Magic Johnson, right? Like he's a more athletic Magic Johnson. Something to that effect was his answer. And so they basically asked him outright, like, okay, but who were you picking? And he said, oh, Jordan, every day. Like that's the guy you want on your team.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, man. But
I
just
mean,
like messing
I
with the
haven't
Jordan
seen
heads.
any. Yeah, I know. That's, I know. I know probably 80, 90% of the people out there who are claiming that LeBron is the GOAT probably just want to mess with people who know that Jordan's the GOAT. That's probably all it is.
Yeah. It's
like they're in denial. They're just in denial.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to your point, it's LA versus Denver, and then Miami versus Boston, and I mean, I'm with you. Like, if he doesn't win these finals, not like the Lakers are super stacked, but they're stacked enough to where there should be no excuses for these finals. I mean, he should walk through the playoffs.
I mean, Rondo's playing like a baller right now. So if he can keep up his play, because I really think Rondo is one of the biggest keys to why they're doing so well right now, because he's kind of taken over a lot of like the court like manipulation and the leadership in a lot of ways. So he's kind of spread loading that from with LeBron. So if he can play consistently like this, then yeah, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't win. But Rondo's had a tendency in the past to play really great and then all of a sudden just kind of tank.
Yep.
So I don't know. I guess we'll see. I mean, we'll see. It's gonna be interesting. I can't wait. I'm probably not gonna watch. I don't know. I actually like the matchup between Boston and Miami. They're very evenly matched teams, so it was actually really enjoyable watching them play.
Yeah. Did you like the fans? The fans up there in the stands?
Yeah.
I heard they said somebody else got kicked out, and I'm like, dude, how do you get kicked out of a virtual stand? Like,
I can think of a couple ways, John.
Well, okay, yeah. I mean, I guess, yeah. Oh man. Speaking of GOAT, James, it's a weird segue, but this does segue into the LAPD. And I was going to go with a different topic first, but since we're talking about basketball and LeBron came up, so backstory. This is an article from the BBC, and I'm not going to read a lot of it, but basically, 2 Los Angeles police officers are recovering in the hospital after being shot in what police are calling an ambush. It said the video of the incident shows a figure approach the officers' vehicles before opening fire and running away. And the LA sheriff, Alex Villanueva, called the act cowardly and the suspect remains at large. They actually have a $100,000 reward out, the sheriff's department does, for the killer. And so that's and one point, because I post about this every year. So this particular stat, in 2020, there's been 40 officers killed in the line of duty, and 8 of them were the victims of an ambush. And regardless of like how they die, I post about the stats every year because it's just important to remember, like, these are just people, right? Like, take politics aside, take race relations, put all that to the side, right? These are just people. All right. So these people were ruthlessly killed. I don't think they have any sort of motive. They haven't caught the person who did it yet. So I'm not sure. They do have the reward out for a particular man, black man, 28 to 30 years old, wearing dark clothes. That's about the only description. So not really sure. Uh, I'm not really sure what any sort of motive was. I mean, we can speculate all day about some, but it's Compton, and you know, rough situation for those families, man. And I believe I didn't see it in the article or not, but Mike and I were talking before, and believe the cops are in critical condition right now. So the LeBron part comes in because the sheriff actually called out LeBron and said, "Hey, you had something to say on your Twitter about, I believe it was race relations or something in relation to cops or something like that. So I want you to match this $100,000 reward and prove that cops' lives are just as important, and something to that effect or whatever." So really weird segue, but that was something interesting that I found. And still in basketball, Kobe Bryant's widow actually called him out and was like, "How dare you do that? You could even keep your deputies from taking pictures of my dead daughter and dead kids on the helicopter that they died in." And so weird connection to basketball. But anyway, what do you think about this situation, Mike, and the overall scheme? And feel free to comment on the basketball title.
Well, I think the whole LeBron thing stems from some of his public comments that he's made. I think one of his most notable ones was where he said in a tweet, I think, like, and I don't have the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, we're being hunted. And so
he said black men are being hunted every day.
Yeah, so he's basically insinuating that police are out there hunting black people. And so, if you're going to insinuate that, and you've got the kind of following, I mean, he's got millions and millions of followers, right? If you're going to insinuate that police in general, because that's kind of the insinuation he's making, that police in general are out there hunting innocent black people, then you're kind of throwing a gauntlet down in a way to where, okay, if you're a black person and you're hearing somebody like a LeBron say that, well, you've got two choices. You can either, if you're being hunted, you can either run or you can hunt back, right? You can attack back. And so I think the sheriff was basically saying, like, hey, maybe instead of being so divisive and kind of taking one side of this issue, why not be a little more why not be a little more objective and kind of let everybody know that that follows you, that it's not okay to go out there and shoot cops and assassinate police officers, right? I mean, if anything, this kind of thing doesn't help in any way the fight that Black Lives Matter, people in Black Lives Matter, people like LeBron, people within the black community, the fight that they're trying to fight when it comes to how black people interact with cops and vice versa. If cops are basically being assassinated now in the streets, and you get nothing from black celebrities, some of the loudest. If they're silent on this kind of issue, it's almost like it's a green light in a lot of ways. I know that's not going to be something that people want to hear, but I mean, in a lot of ways, I think that's what the sheriff's basically saying. Like, look, if you can't come out and say, you can't come out and condemn this kind of thing when it happens to a cop, and you're only going to condemn something that happens when a cop does something to a black person, then you're basically green-lighting that kind of action.
So I'll take two different perspectives there on that. And let me actually read Sheriff Villanueva's words first, because it does kind of speak to your point, even though I hadn't read them before. You kind of spoke to the truth of what Villanueva was trying to say here. And so this is what he said in a radio interview to 790 KABC. He said, "This challenge is to LeBron James. I want you to match that," meaning the reward, "and double that reward because I know you care about law enforcement. You expressed a very, very interesting statement about your perspective on race relations and on officer-involved shootings and the impact it has on the African-American community. And I appreciate that. But likewise, we need to appreciate the respect for life. We need to appreciate the respect for life goes across professions, across races, creeds. And I like to see LeBron James step up to the plate and double that." All right. So largely, he's saying what you're saying, like in terms of step up and show that this was not okay, right? To your point, that's largely what Villanueva is saying. On one hand, I agree with both of you, but I disagree also. Because on one hand, it's not their responsibility to condemn it. Just to be honest, it's not really their responsibility to condemn the actions of any and every bad act that a black person does just because they're black and they have a platform. On the other hand, it would be good, right? Like if you're going to speak up and you're going to call out cops, for doing this sort of thing, like be level on it, right? Like if you're going to call that out, call this out too, right? It's not
right, because if you don't, it creates the perception that one is okay and one isn't. If you're going to voice your opinion on one and you don't voice your opinion on the other, then the perception is created that, well, he didn't say nothing about these two cops getting assassinated or attempted assassination. So, and this is a big. It's not like this is a small issue going on right now. This is a big thing going on right now. So.
Yeah, and so this is also the argument. If you flip the sides, this is the argument also when it comes to, pick them. You could say any prominent white individual. So let's say Trump in this example. When Trump doesn't call out the actions of certain people, it's as if he that he supports them, right? And we've seen if it's somebody that's a MAGA person, he's not calling them out, right? He's not going to just be like, oh, they're terrible people, lock them up, kill them. But if it's somebody that isn't MAGA, he does condemn them. And so that same argument is used against Trump, that he doesn't condemn one side. And so that means he's complicit. That same argument, if you apply it to LeBron, or if you apply it to Trump, you can apply that same argument to LeBron. So that's where I say, I do agree with you guys that once you step out there and you speak on it, if you speak on it, you're there, right? Like you're there. So the question becomes, for me to LeBron, is if the shooter was white and the cops were black, would that make you speak up? Right. So basically, is it racial only? Right. Like, is it only about race or is it only about cops killing people? And so I haven't seen him speak on it. I know he's in the playoffs and I know he disconnects sometimes in the playoffs. So we'll see. But I think he's been tweeting during the playoffs this time. Normally what does he call it? 0 dark 30 or something, some reference that he goes dark in the playoffs. But I am interested in seeing, but the reward part, I was like, yeah, no, dog. His money don't need to go up for any sort of reward, because, when you put this against like the backdrop of like Breonna Taylor, where those cops, like, there's no question they killed Breonna Taylor incorrectly. And she just got, I believe they said, a $12 million settlement. Or excuse me, she didn't. Her family did. And there's no like $100,000 reward to go out and find those killers. Like, we know who they are.
I think that situation is a little different. Here's why, right? So the Breonna Taylor situation, as terrible as it is, happened because police officers were technically performing their official duty. Now that's I'm talking like all of the other stuff is kind of outside, like it. I'm not talking about any of the details of whether or not you agree with how they perform that duty, how grossly negligent they may or may not have been, which resulted in their death. But, that situation was about cops performing their official duty and which resulted in her death. And so that's a little different than somebody literally walking up to a cop car and trying to assassinate or murder somebody in cold blood on video. Like, it's a little different. So
I'll give you that to one extent, though, that it is different, but the result still shouldn't be them walking free, right? Like if you right now in driving and executing your job run somebody over, it's not going to be like, well, he was just trying to do his job. He's just a truck driver.
Well, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, there's no video like there's a video of this type of shooting because it was police officers performing their official duty. You have to wait for an investigation to come out, or the investigation details to come out. Essentially, you have to wait for the cards to be played as far as how it's all going to play out when it comes to the evidence, right? So you can't, if you're Trump or any other kind of politician, you can't just jump into the pool and come up with your own opinion and decision without letting things play out however long it takes for them to play out, right? It would be irresponsible for you to assume it. Now, if there was like video that is just clear cut and is just a no-brainer, kind of slam dunk, like, hey, this is obvious X, Y, or Z, then I wouldn't have any issues with somebody coming out and having their opinion, especially if you're the president or whoever. But that, I don't think that's not really the case in the Breonna Taylor. But I know what you're saying, but this is just a little bit of a different situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, in that case though, they pretty much have the evidence. Like, the city would be paying out money if they didn't have enough evidence. They'd extend that thing as long as they could, and that's $12 million taxpayer dollars. Yeah, they got enough evidence to know that they were in the wrong. They know that for sure. So we'll see what happens there. But this officer situation, man, is just, it's one of those divisive things, right? Like my argument to people who have a problem with Black Lives Matter, the movement, not the organization. And I wish there was an easier way to distinguish that, but the organization you can have issues with. The idea that a Black life matters, nobody should, right? So the argument that I have to people who fight so hard against it is they're people, right? Like they're people. Take away the racial aspect, right? The fake construct we call race, right? They're just people. So government agents are killing people. That's a problem, right? The same thing I apply to cops. I don't care if it's another cop killing a cop or a citizen killing a cop. They're people, bro. Like, if you can't have compassion for people being, unceremoniously killed, in this case, completely ambushed, like, I mean, what are we doing here? Like, as a society,
let me ask you a question, John. And I was just thinking about this when you're saying that, if your life didn't matter to you, would you expect your life to matter to me? So what I'm saying is if your life didn't matter to you, I guess what I'm saying is, let's say that you were living your life as if it didn't matter. So maybe you're out there gang banging, weren't trying to do what you can do to better your life and get yourself out of the situation that you find yourself in. Whether you were born into that life and born without a lot of the, quote unquote privileges that a lot of other people are born with. But if you're the kind of person that you're living your life in such a way where you essentially don't value your own life, if you ask a lot of people, I've listened to a lot of interviews, black people that have been incarcerated, and a lot of them will tell you that they didn't expect to live past 18 years old, 22 years old, right? Because of the nature of where they live, where they grew up, the life that they were living, right? And so if you're living your life in such a way where you don't even value your own life, should you expect other people to value your life?
Yes. And I'll clarify why here. So the idea of valuing your life being based on choices, right? So your choice of profession, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that you don't value your life. You may just see that as the only way out. And I know a lot of people in that boat. Mute real quick, bro. I got a lot of noise. I know a lot of people in that boat, man, who basically feel like there is no way out. This is the only life that they can live. It's the only way they can make money, right? And so, a brief story is my brother grew up in a different setting and scenario than I did, right? We have a different mom. And I used to talk to him and I'd be like, dude, why are you going back to the streets? Like, why are you doing this? And, different reasons, right? He's working in the oil field, bust his shoulder up. And he's like, man, because he grew up a different life, right? He grew up on the streets. But it wasn't that he didn't value his life. He definitely did. He valued his life. He valued his kids' life. His mindset was just completely different. But to answer your question, though, I say yes, because it's another human. Now, I'm not saying that you value my life or my brother's life or anybody else's life more than yours, but you should value another human's life, because if you don't, then that's the kind of stuff that you end up with, like people who just kill people for no reason, right? Like the guy who shot these cops, I would say he didn't value their lives, right? But just from a human
I would argue he didn't. I would value he didn't value his own life. If you're gonna go walk up to two cops in a car and try and assassinate them, you probably don't value your own life. So that's, I guess. I
don't think there's I don't think he's wearing like it looked like he had a hoodie on, but it isn't like he was trying to conceal himself with, so they couldn't identify or anything like that. Didn't look out for cameras. He just walked up, pop, pop. Right. So, I can agree with you that in that case, I would say he didn't value his life. But just because somebody's caught up in the gang life doesn't mean they don't. Look at Prohibition, the Kennedys. The Kennedys were out there breaking laws and all that, but I'm sure they valued their life, right? So I don't hold that against folks, but just on a human level. I'm not saying simply because you're gang banging or whatever that you don't value your own life. It's an example of if a certain type of person who's living their life in a certain type of way, whether it's gangbang, maybe it's just maybe it's drug dealing, maybe it's somebody who's involved in child
you're like human trafficking. I mean, there's a wide range of people who are living their life in such a way where they really don't value their life because their actions are such that, you know, if they get caught, their life is over, right? If somebody catches them doing what they're doing, their life is essentially over, right? You go to jail for the rest of your life. You can be shot. You can get the death penalty. So if you're living that kind of life, is it reasonable to have the expectation that somebody else should value your life when you clearly don't value your own life? And the reason I bring that up is because if you're in an environment where the perception is, and I'm talking about from a law enforcement standpoint, and I've never been in law enforcement, but I can imagine being in an environment in certain areas of law enforcement, like let's say Compton or like some of the worst parts of Los Angeles or Chicago, right, where the perception from your standpoint is that a large majority of the people that you have to interact with on a daily basis don't even value their own life because of the actions that they're taking, the things that you have to see and the things that you have to deal with on a daily basis, right? When it comes to the murders and the rapes and the physical abuse and all that stuff. If that's what you see, then it jades you, and you probably start to lose value in the lives of the general people that you're around. And and part of me doesn't fault them for that because they're human, right? I think it would be almost impossible for you not to fall down that rabbit hole if you're in that environment all the time. So it's like a Pandora's box, really, right?
Right.
So
flip that.
I'm not saying it's right.
Yeah, no, I got you. So flip that, and if you're in that area where you're, living in an area that may have high crime or whatever the case may be, and the cops are there, and the jaded cop that you're speaking of is there, and he's treating everybody around you as if their lives don't matter, it's not a far leap to see that you end up being jaded against cops yourself and going somewhere. So this is cyclical, right?
Sure.
And that's why community policing, to me, community policing is such a big deal, right? Like you see the videos of cops out playing ball with some cats and, stuff like that, out there chilling, going to the barbecue, dancing, hooping, all sorts of stuff, man. And I think that helps endear the people from a human perspective to the cop and vice versa. And, to your point, man, like we spoke to Scotty Clark not long ago, and he was telling stories about how, he got to that point, man, where you see dead babies and stuff from, car wrecks or whatever. You see beaten wives and things like that. And so, yeah, when you catch one dude slipping, you accidentally, you may slam his head a little bit on putting his head into the car, like, oops, my bad, So, yeah, man, people are people. Like it's not, they're not robots, and so it is easy to fall into that trap. But that, I mean, it's definitely a deep topic to in regards to valuing another's life. And I will say that there definitely are cases where it's like, yeah, bro, nah, I'm good with the death penalty on this one, right? Like there's certain that not everybody has that redeemable quality, I'm generally an optimist, so I always think there's a way to get to people. But there are definitely some people out there, bro, and you've probably seen more than I have for sure overseas, dealing with war, man, that there are some people out there that, and ultimately when it comes down to it, you or me, I'm valuing me and mine over you and yours. That's
and the worst part, and the worst part with all this is, it really is going to get worse before it gets better, because there's so many layers to this issue, and like now, with the economy, the way that it is, and we've been talking about this for a while now, and things not getting any better because of this whole COVID thing, and you know, it's all the other stuff that we've been talking about. Like it's like these kind of social issues are getting, like I said, it's getting worse, right? I mean, we're now at the point, and we probably talked about this months ago. We're now at the point where people are walking around essentially assassinating cops, like just sitting around.
I want to say
in their car.
You actually stated, you or Chris stated that we were probably going to get to that point. And
yes, I'm pretty sure I did. Yep. Yep. And now we're here, and it will get worse. I mean, and it all comes back to the social fabric being torn apart because the system that this whole thing is based on is crumbling underneath everybody's feet from a financial and economic standpoint. And so these kinds of things are going to get worse. And that's the terrible reality. But I mean, we're at the point now where, I mean, they're going to keep printing more and more money to try and plug what is essentially a black hole. That it's crazy. I mean, what the Federal Reserve. Like, and this is one of the things we were talking about earlier. You know, the Federal Reserve is not going to raise interest rates for what, till like 2023, or like, I mean, they're going to keep interest rates at zero, which means that they've essentially officially endorsed negative interest rates because they're going to let inflation run hot, quote unquote hot. So they've been trying to run inflation at 2% all these years. They haven't been able to get to 2%. Well, now they think that, you know, they're just going to let inflation run away with itself to like somewhere between 2 and 3, maybe 4%. And so you're gonna have inflation at 2, 3, 4%, interest rates at zero. So your real interest rates are going to be negative. So you're losing money. And the value of your money is basically turning into dog shit overnight at a rapid rate, which means that all the society is going to turn to dog shit at a rapid rate in sequence with it. So it's going to get worse, man.
Actually, yeah, that goes to your point about you brought it up a while back about us getting to the point of like a civil war, and I've said for a long time, like, man, we're not getting to a civil war like people to people. But imagine if some cops decide, nah, it's time to go ahead and take the fight to the streets. And then what do you think the streets gonna do? They're gonna take the fight back to the cops, and that's gonna spread like wildfire. If that pops off, we got a problem. And as this money erodes, I mean, and you know, to be clear, they said through at least 2023. So that means they're not looking to tweak this until 2024. So we saw how crazy people got just from this pandemic here. Now imagine if that goes on for a longer period of time. That's a massive problem, and definitely, you know, as Trump say, enough dry leaves to explode. So we can definitely get to the point where this thing could explode, man. Like once that money just implodes like that and people start seeing their value go away, it's a problem, man. I have a interest, they quote unquote high interest checking account, but it's not. It started out somewhere near 2% or almost 3, I think. And now it's at 79.79%. And that's in like less than a year it did that. So 4 more years, high interest checking accounts. Why would you even keep money in a high interest checking account?
Oh yeah, all the smart people are putting their money into inflation hedges like gold, silver, Bitcoin, fine art, certain types of real estate. Like the smart people are moving their money out of anything having to do with the dollar, right? They're moving it into assets. So because the dollar is a liability at this point. And so we're going to see. I doubt it's going to happen before the election because I don't think Nancy Pelosi is going to let it happen. But you're going to sometime next year we should see some sort of massive stimulus / like UBI type scenario where they just print like trillions of dollars and hand it out to people.
They actually, talked about it. I think today. Let me see if I can find the article. Actually, they said Pelosi. I think Trump stated that. So Pelosi said the House is going to stay in session until there's a deal reached. And then there was something came out about Trump saying that he wanted to, like he backed a big deal, like a big stimulus package. And so, this is it right here. Trump calls for higher numbers in stimulus, and the fight undercuts the Republican strategy, right? And so it kind of goes to, what people say a lot is that Trump's really not a Republican. And he's not in the sense that he's going to tote the Republican line, like he's going to make the line and they're like, y'all follow me. And so Trump's calling for a larger measure. And then, and Pelosi's like, oh yeah, that's definitely what we're talking about. So, we could see this before the election.
She's not gonna let him get a political win before the election. That's the thing. If she passes any kind of stimulus or relief package that he proposes, it doesn't matter. He could probably propose a $5 trillion stimulus package at this point, which is like $2 trillion more than she wanted, and she would probably say no. So, because she just doesn't want him to have any kind of political win before the election. Now after the election, if Biden wins, well, it'll just be the same. It'll be the same circus show. The only way I see something actually passing is if Biden wins and the Democrats take both houses. But Congress can't get their heads out of their ass.
I was thinking about that the other day. Is that the only way? Like we're just gonna waste another 4 years if the seats don't flip, right? Like if Trump wins and the House doesn't flip, then it's just going to basically see another 4 years of fighting, and vice versa. If Biden wins and the Senate doesn't flip, it's going to see 4 years of more fighting, right? It's just going to be repetitive, man. And they're both.
That's probably
thing is they're both on Twitter calling each other out. The other side doesn't want to do anything. Is basically you can write the tweet in any way you want it. The Dems say the Republicans are messing with the stimulus. The Republicans say the Dems are messing with the stimulus and holding it up. So it's all marketing, man. It's just marketing.
I think unless we get a result where one side wins and they control both houses, I think the markets are going to go bananas, because the markets will know that if you have a split Congress. Now, I don't know though, because Biden is a very establishment type figure. So if Biden wins, you may get the Republicans, you may get enough establishment Republicans to deal with him, because Biden's part of the establishment crew. And when I say establishment, I'm not just talking about Democratic establishment. I'm talking about Republican establishment. Because both sides of the establishment are equally concerned with screwing this country, in the rear. So I would say if Trump wins and we have a split Congress, then all bets are off. The market will freaking probably eat itself alive. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting.
So what you had brought up earlier was about in our pre-show about even the vaccine being politicized, where Kamala Harris was saying that if the vaccine comes out before the election, she's not taking it because she just doesn't trust, trust the as
The
you
FDA.
said, trust the FDA under Trump to handle it. And so, so even then, like even if the vaccine is scientifically proven to be a valid vaccine, politics has her out pushing a message that it's a problem under Trump, which going back to your other point, Mike, that's sending a signal to people on her side not to trust the vaccine that could potentially save however many millions or thousands of people, right? Like it's now, it's at that point. That's the point we're at right now, right? Now, I'm not going to take a vaccine. And just be clear, I'm not taking, but it's not going to be because Trump's in office. Like that's not my, my breaking point. Like, oh yeah, I'm sick, but I'm not going to deal with this vaccine because Trump's in office, right? That just seems irresponsible to me.
No, yeah, I mean, I think she's kind of shooting herself in the foot because she's essentially saying you can't trust the federal government at this point, simply because Trump's in charge. But the second Trump's not in charge, well, now you can trust the federal government again. So you can't have it both ways like that. So I mean, but that's where we're at right now. I mean, I know I'm not taking the vaccine if they come out with it.
They ain't got nothing to do with Republican or Democrat.
Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't matter if Joe Biden wins and they come out with a vaccine in March. Like knowing what I know about vaccines, which isn't like I'm not a virologist or an epidemiologist or anything, but I know that these viruses mutate all the time, and even with the flu, you have to get the flu vaccine changes like all the time. So, by the time they come out with a vaccine, this thing will probably have already mutated. And I'm not going to be one of the first guinea pigs to get tested with some new vaccine that they came out with, like 10 times faster than any normal vaccine usually comes out at. It's just not. It's not gonna be me. I mean, somebody else can take it.
Yeah, for real. I think a lot of Americans going to be like that anyway. Like they're going to be a little bit cautious. Of course, the anti-vaxxers, you just knock them all out. None of them are going to take it. And then the rest of them, they probably are going to deal with, the politics of it. But, I'm interested to see if they actually charge for this or not. Because to your point, the week ending September 5th, the jobless claims were 884,000. So those were just and that's seasonally adjusted as well. I mean, how do they charge for a vaccine, but what company's going to give it away for free?
Well, that's the other thing too, John, is, I don't know if I blame people for not trusting the FDA. I mean, look at the revolving door between the FDA, people that have worked at these pharmaceutical companies, all the lobbyists in Washington, who can get what approved in what time versus somebody else. There's just like, if you really look into the history of the FDA and these things that have come out and all the connections, and when it comes to politics and these freaking multi-billion-dollar companies, and the fact, just the pure fact that the government lies about, I don't know, just about everything. I don't blame people for for not being first in line to take a vaccine that comes out like super quick.
Yeah, no doubt. And just for note, I just found Biden said, this is an article from 3 hours ago, that we can't allow politics to interfere with the vaccine in any way. Now, I haven't listened to it. It's a video. He could be talking about Trump, pushing out the vaccine because but I don't know. But he could be going any direction with that because the feds basically stated that they were going to push the vaccine out 24 hours after the first one is approved. So it's like, get the approval, ship it. Like let's go. And yeah, man, like I don't know about that. Like I need to see that thing baked a little bit, post a PDF or something with some medical facts or something I can pass by a doctor friend or something. Give me something.
Yeah. Well, this is classic Trump, though. If there's anything that you can, if there's a quality that you can definitely assign to Trump, is that he makes very rash, unthought out decisions, right? So he's very he just does things at the drop of a dime. You can tell just by the way that he talks and communicates. So it would be no surprise that if the FDA approves something, it's like bam, ship it, get everybody on this as quickly as possible. You know what I mean? It's like that's such a rash way of handling the situation. But when politics are involved and you're on a timeline, you got an election. I mean,
yep.
You got to take all those things. He's going to take all those things into consideration. I mean, it's not like we have a leader. We definitely don't have a leader in the Oval Office who's going to sit back, digest all the information, come to a well thought out, rational decision, and be able to effectively communicate why he's making this decision and at what time and why he's doing it in the time frame that he's doing it. Like that's just not the person that we have in the White House. And I don't think Biden's that person either.
Hey,
so
I was thinking when you were talking, I said, we're not going to have one in January either if Biden wins. We on the same page there.
So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah, man. It's all gotten politicized, man. Vaccine, if it's not from my party, I don't want it. Sort of thing. And man, I don't know, man. We just need Chris Garza 2024. That's what we need.
Hell yeah.
Get CG in there. Make you we're going to rename it to the Minister of Finance.
CG might be a little too far on the left for some of my friends. I don't know. We'll see. Although he's down south Texan, so I know he can rock with a lot of them. So it's all good.
Yeah. That's hilarious. He's gonna give it to us when he listens back to this. Man, we're coming up on the hour, bro. Man, it's a great discussion, man. Always enjoy this. And the crazy thing is, I didn't realize until like 40 minutes in, I had the wrong microphone selected. So the audio for me probably sounds terrible. But yeah, man, this is definitely, a debate, or not even debate, just a discussion to be had. I really appreciate the discussion on the cops, man, and that whole concept, man, of human life and that sort of thing. Great discussion, bro. So catch us on YouTube or hit us up on politicalfreeagents.com. You can see the link to our YouTube right there. Go like, subscribe. That helps get the show out there. Also share it, man. Get this thing out there. Share it to your friends, your family, everybody. Just put this thing out. I'm actually starting to post a couple of pictures and things, some little tidbits that we can put out there, some sayings and quotes and things that we've said in the show, stuff like that. So when you see those, start posting those, start getting those out there and helping spread the show. Check us out on social media at PFA Podcasts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and catch us live Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Sundays at 2 p.m. We are out. Later, Mike.
See you later, brother.